Would have been a very expensive problem.
Really good to be here. My name is Joel. I work for a charity called Kintsugi Hope. We're a national charity, but we are based in terms of our offices in Hatfield and Peveril. So a lot of stuff going on around here and Chelmsford Way. Kintsugi comes from the Japanese art form of mending broken pottery. So in the UK, we might break a pot. What we might do is we might super glue it back together, hide the cracks, or we might just chuck it in the bin, if we're honest. In Japan, what they do, they put gold powder in the glue and they make a feature of the cracks. Arguably, that pot is more beautiful. It is definitely more unique. So I've been working for this organisation for 5 years now. It's really good. I'm based in Ipswich, so not far from you guys, not far down the road. We have an incredible football team, and life's really good over there, so come and join us if you ever want to. There was this time I was in the airport, and I was in the airport and I was going to the toilet, and in the cubicle next to me, I hear a father and a son walking. And it sounded like there was a small child and a father, and the father was like, if you're going to throw up, just get it over and done with. You stuffed all of your breakfast too quickly. You had your sausages, you had your eggs, you had your bacon. Just, if you're going to throw up, get it over and done with. And the child, in a very timid voice, said, but I was feeling sick before I had my breakfast, Dad. And the dad suddenly was like, you nervous about flying? And I wasn't in the cubicle with them, thankfully, but I just wanted to clear that. I believe that he nodded, because then the father said, me too. If we want to go on this holiday, we've got to do a scary thing and we can do it together. And I feel like when we speak about mental health, it can feel like that, can't it? Actually, this is sometimes an uncomfortable topic for us. Maybe because we've struggled or we know people that have struggled, but sometimes it can be very uncomfortable. Sometimes it can feel like we don't want to speak about it. But if we want to get to a place where everyone is open, where everyone is finding healing, where everyone is finding their kintsugi within themselves, then we need to go through some uncomfortability, some uncomfortable conversations to get to that place. There is a stigma around mental health, isn't there? Our grandparents wouldn't know what it is. Our grandparents would never have spoken about it. We heard this story at one of our wellbeing groups. There was an older couple, and they joined one of our Kintsugi Hope wellbeing groups. And on the first week, this elderly gentleman said more about how he was feeling than he had done for 50 years of his marriage. And on the way home, his wife was like to him, why did he say more then than you ever have before? And he went, I didn't know I was able to. That's the culture we grew up in sometimes. We didn't know if we were able to speak about mental health. We didn't know if we were able to speak about it. And this stigma and this uncomfortability isn't just like a cultural thing, but it's also a Christian thing. When we speak about mental health, we can also often feel uncomfortable in the church. There's stories after stories after stories of people in the church opening up about their struggles and actually being shut down. We've had stories of people who struggle with anxiety and they've had demons try to be cast out of them. We've had stories of people who are suicidal and their vicar has told them, I won't bury you in the churchyard if you complete a suicide. We have these stories of these uncomfortable things because there's a stigma around it. So if one was, I never want to speak about mental health and this is my worst nightmare, to 10, I am totally at ease about this topic right now, where are you guys? Why don't you turn to your neighbour and have a minute conversation? Where would you put yourself in the scale of this conversation? How comfortable is this for you? Or is this next 40 minutes going to be awful and you're already looking at the clock ready to go home? So turn to your neighbour and share with them. In terms of, I was thinking about 20s and 30s, the best research in 20s and 30s mental health is in the student population. So in the student population, 50% of students considered leaving their courses because of their mental health. 7 in 10 students have either been diagnosed with a long-term mental health condition, or experiencing a short-term mental health condition, or think they may have a condition that has not been diagnosed. and then this is everyone in the UK, this is the NHS speaking this, 1 in 4 people in the UK have a mental health condition. So there might be a stigma, but the truth is there'll be people in this room who are struggling. The truth is these are affecting your neighbours, your families and your communities. Even if there's a stigma, this is something the church needs to speak about. Even if there's a stigma, there's an issue going on what's facing 1/4 of our population. And the church needs to sort it out. People would say if 100 people in the UK were killed by foxes each year, we would sort the fox population out in the UK, wouldn't we? How many people are killed by mental health each year? This is something we need to look at. This is something we need to talk about. But when we speak about mental health, it can be really confusing, can't it? Because language around it is really weird. Is it mental health? Is it mental illness? Is it mental well-being? What is all this language? And one of the best ways I found in communicating the different words and working out where we are is this thing called the mental health continuum. So the mental health continuum is this. Is it called a quadrant? Is that what it's called? It sounds really clever, so I'm going to say this is the mental health quadrant. Thank you very much. All of us are on this continuum or quadrant at any given time. And it's a scale. So imagine this is a scale 1 to 10 and 1 to 10, whatever way makes more sense. So we are always on this. So top right person is a person with no mental health illness or disorder and a positive mental health. So on this scale, they don't have a diagnosis. They have no diagnosis of mental health, but actually on their well-being and their mental fitness, they're actually really good. Some of us, life's great, we're really good, we're really happy, and we're in this section. Here is someone who has no diagnosis of mental illness or disorder, but has a poor mental health. So somebody who doesn't have a diagnosis, they haven't got an anxiety condition or chronic depression, but actually right now their well-being is low. Right now they're struggling. And that could be situational, somebody has died or something has happened, or it could just be actually it's the winter, they haven't got much sun, and life is just a bit hard right now. This one is somebody with a serious diagnosis of a mental health illness, but has good coping mechanisms, so has a positive well-being. So this could be someone who has depression, but is on medication and has counselling, so actually they're feeling pretty good. So somebody who might have a diagnosis, but their well-being is good. And here is someone who has a diagnosis of a serious mental health illness, but also has poor mental health. This one, someone's on the rocks. This one, someone's really struggling. At any point, we are somewhere on here. And every second, every minute, we can change where we're on here. This is a scale, so it might be actually, today you're feeling quite good, but tomorrow you hear some bad news and you come low here. So there's a whole scale here, what you move about in as you go about your life. But what I love about this is it shows a world where mental well-being and mental health illnesses live and work in the same place. I do a lot of work with young people, and often they'll look on TikTok, and TikTok will say, if you blink 4 times in a minute, and you stand up and you go downstairs, you've got ADHD. That sort of thing. And suddenly they will label themselves with a mental health illness. And that's not always helpful, because the people who have got illness are like, hey, hold up, actually I'm really struggling. But the people who haven't got a mental health diagnosis feel like they won't feel heard unless they have a diagnosis. This shows you can be struggling with your well-being, and that is completely valid and that's completely normal, but it doesn't mean you'll have a mental health condition. But what it also shows is if you have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, it isn't a life sentence. It isn't something where actually, that's it, you're good for now, that's all what's going on. We're always on this. And I find this super helpful whenever we speak about mental health to start off with, is going, this is the language we're looking at. We have mental illness and we have mental well-being. But in all of this, we all have mental health. We all have physical health. If we didn't have physical health, we wouldn't be breathing right now. And if you've got physical health, it means you've got mental health. So this is what culture, this is what scientists look at and say about mental health. What does the Bible say about mental health? What does the Bible say about it all? There's loads of things what people say about the Bible, but actually when you look at the Bible doesn't once say mental health in it. You could go page to page and you won't see the word mental health in the Bible. And the reason for that is because the word mental health was originated in 1843 by William Swartzner, that's how you say the name, and he coined in his book Mental Hygiene. This is the first time recorded ever someone coining the phrase mental hygiene. Later on in the 1900s, hygiene turned to mental health. So we won't see it in the Bible, not because it isn't in there, but because the language didn't exist then. So, the words might not be in there, but throughout the Bible, it is littered with stories and places and things and everything all about mental health. And one of my favourite places to speak about in terms of mental health and how God reacts to mental health is Elijah. So that was a very dramatic time to have a glass of water. I committed too soon. Just got to push through. So the context of Elijah is this. Elijah was a prophet. You'll find this in the Old Testament. The Old Testament means it was before Jesus came to this earth, before Paul, before the Gospels. Now he was a prophet. Prophets in that time were people who heard from God and declared to the nation what God was saying. Usually, the prophets weren't usually liked in the time because they were usually telling off Israel for what they'd done wrong. At this moment in the story, we find Israel within a 3-year drought and famine. Now, the king at that moment was worshipping a false god called Baal, and because of that, and because he was angry at the God, Yahweh, for the famine, he decided to hunt down and kill the prophets of God. So Elijah wasn't that popular at this moment in time. He was kind of hiding. And then God tells Elijah, go and present yourself to the king and say, I am ready for this drought to finish. So this guy is hunting prophets down, is killing them, and God goes, yo, Elijah, I know he wants to kill you, but go and say hello to him for me. So Elijah, after meeting someone else, ends up going to the king, and goes there. And he says to the king, God's ready for this drought to finish. The king isn't happy to see Elijah, it's fair to say. Imagine you thought someone took all your water and all your money for 3 years and then they turned up at your door. You wouldn't be happy to see them. So Elijah does this. Elijah challenges the king to a showdown. Like to a duel, like it's something of this incredible thing. Hey, let's have a showdown of which God is the one true God. We'll meet on this mountain, you bring whoever you want, and we will pray to our gods, and whichever God shows up will be the one true God, and the country will start to follow them. Elijah put his money where his mouth is, and when I believe in Yahweh, I'm going to prove to you that Yahweh exists. So they met on Mount Carmel. The king brought 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Ashar, and all of them eat at Jezebel's table. So that's, if my maths is correct, that's 850 prophets versus one Elijah. So they're meeting there, it's a big old thing, and Elijah goes to these prophets, let's have a showdown. Most of the prophets are dead. He himself has gone to the king, and he goes, let me prove to you that the prophets you're killing are the prophets of the one true God. And we're going to call our gods down and see whichever God lights the fire on our place will be the one true God. And Elijah's a gentleman. Elijah, when you guys go first. So the prophets started crying out to Baal, they started doing all these things, they started whipping themselves, all this sort of stuff. And nothing happens. Elijah, he gets a bit full of himself. He says, oh, why didn't you speak up louder? He might not hear you. Like, he's gassed at this point. Like, there's 850 prophets looking stupid. And he's just there relaxed, going, yeah, go on, do what you need to do. Nothing happens. After a while, it's finally Elijah's turn. Elijah says, yo, get some water, chuck it on the wood. Get some more water, do it again, and do it again. And then Elijah does this epic prayer. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, that you are turning their hearts back again. And the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifices, the wood, the stones and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. God showed up. In that instant, people saw that Yahweh was the one true God. The false prophets were killed. Israel turned back to the one true God. And it was amazing. After that moment, rain came down on the land, and it was really good. It was a moment where you would probably describe it as a mountaintop moment in your faith. I saw God show up. I saw him do that thing. And I was like, wow. And most of us, as we go on this Christian journey, we will have those mountaintop moments. Often they'll be at these big gatherings or big festivals. For me, I've had these mountaintop moments at Soul Survivor or at other Christian festivals where it's like, oh wow, I see God and he is moved. Do you know there's times where God just shows up and you're just super excited. So Elijah's in this mountaintop moment, feeling on fire for God. And then this happens. Now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a message to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, but ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like one of them. Jezebel basically went, you're dead by tomorrow. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Bathsheba and Judah, he left a servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. Elijah went from that mountaintop moment to days later being suicidal, asking God to take his life. He went from that high to that low so quickly. Actually, we can all do that. We can always have these mountaintop moments where we can think, I will never doubt God again. And a few weeks later, you're asking God, why haven't you shown up? Why haven't you done this? So Elijah was at the point of death. He was suicidal. How did God deal with him? God didn't go, Elijah, you're weak. God didn't go, get up and be a man, suck it up. We've heard countless stories of churches saying those sort of things. Elijah, have a bit more faith. Elijah, come on, keep going. And if the church is communicating things to you like that, I just want to say I'm sorry. This is not how God acts. We're going to read in a minute how God acted when Elijah was in that place. The church has sometimes communicated really hurtful things when people are in the really low moments of life. And that's not right and that's not on. This is how God handles people when they're in these low moments of life. All at once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around and there by his head was some baked bread. I imagine it was sourdough. There were hot coals and a jar of water. Imagine it was sparkling. He ate and he drank and then he lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he travelled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. God met Elijah's physical needs. Elijah was at the lowest point. God didn't go, have a bit more faith. He said, have some food and have a nap. How refreshing is that to hear about God? That God will meet us with our physical needs. God isn't always just this spiritual person who will meet us spiritually. Actually, we can sometimes forget that God will meet us physically. Jesus was a physical person. Remember a couple of years ago, I was praying for a young person who was really distressed. I tried all the prayers, all the stuff I know about faith, like, Lord, help him know he's loved, help him know he's cared for, and still this guy was really distressed. And I remember after a while, I felt God go, use my name. So I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command peace over your body. Completely still. We can forget that our God can meet us in our physical needs. When we're struggling, God doesn't say, keep on going, come on. He says, my child, I'm here. Have a nap. Go, eat. We can see physical healings. We can see God show up in physical ways. There'll be times where, so every term, our charity gives us a retreat day. There's been times where I'm like, I'm going to seek the Lord today. It's going to be amazing. Like, I'm going to be really spiritual. And I lie on my sofa, I put on some worship music, and then I wake up 4 hours later. Like, and sometimes go, oh, that was a bit bad. But no, God, that's what I needed. I was exhausted. I was like, yo, let's have a nap. But God can meet us in our physical needs. There's little things as when you're driving up to a car park and Lord, help me find a space. It's incredible when you find a space. You're like, hallelujah, he exists. It's incredible. There are times where we can over-spiritualise what's happening, isn't there? Where we can over-spiritualise, oh, God won't help me with that thing. I remember at the start of 2023, I was signed off work because I was depressed. And I was depressed for a couple of months. And I remember I was in this really low place. This place where I was really struggling with life. And I was praying to God one morning, God, help me just see you at some point today. Show me that you're with me in this. And I remember driving in the countryside by Ipswich and just felt the urge to pull over. As I pull over, I just see in the field next to me 25 deer and stags. And 3 of those stags were albino stags, I didn't even know existed, and apparently they're super rare. And it was just like, it was such a small thing, but God going, hey look, I'm here. I know that's what you need, I've showed up. So the next day, feeling quite excited, I prayed again. I was like, God, I want to know that you're with me today. And I was able to read a book for the first time in months. God wants to meet you at your physical needs. And actually, when we come to this as Christians, when we come to this topic as Christians, it's helpful to remember there are physical things we can do or help our mental health. And that doesn't mean we have a lack of faith. That doesn't mean actually we're not good Christians. It means we are looking after ourselves. God said, eat and sleep. Sleep in 8 hours actually helps your mental health. It's proven. Sleep, getting good at sleep helps your mental health. It's proven a healthy diet helps your mental health. And what else can help some people with their mental health? Is medication. When we're ill, we'll take paracetamol. No one says you lack of faith for taking paracetamol. Likewise, some people who are struggling go, actually, I can't take medications, I'm not trusting God enough. Yet, Elijah wasn't trusting God enough, yet but God met him at his physical needs. He went, hey, have something to eat, have something to drink. When we have a headache, we take paracetamol. But also we pray. When someone is ill, if you speak to someone who's going through a cancer treatment, the doctor will say, what the best people who are most likely to have the medication help them is the people who have a family around them who care for them and love them. Because you need both. When you're when I was depressed and I was given the options of medication, I was told medication by itself isn't going to help you. If you do medication while sleeping, whilst eating healthy, whilst seeing your friends, whilst doing counselling, that has its best chance of helping. Likewise, it's not pray and trust God or take a medication, not pray and trust God or to go to a counsellor. It's together holistically, we're going to do this. God can meet your physical needs. God can come to you like he came to Elijah and said, let's have a nap and let's have something to eat. It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? When you're in that lowest low, God go, hey, I'm here. I've got you. Let's do this together. All we need to do is do what Elijah did. Go, God, help me. Elijah was struggling. Who did he go to? He went to God. Actually, struggling isn't a bad thing. Struggling shouldn't be something you should be ashamed of. It's something where you're struggling, you go straight to the Father. But God didn't just meet his physical needs, though. He can meet his emotional and mental needs. If we jump a little bit ahead of the story, Elijah's in the cave and he's meeting God. And the word of the Lord came to him and said, what are you doing here, Elijah? Elijah replied, I've been very zealous for the Lord Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars and put your prophets to death with the sword. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too. When you're struggling with mental health, you can often feel like you're the only one struggling. When you're in that lowest low, you can often feel like you're the only one in that place. But actually, that's a feeling, that's an emotion, but that's not always the truth. Often we can feel like we're the only one here. Elijah's like, I'm the only prophet left, God. I'm all by myself. But God said this. Go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael, king over Aram, and also anoint Jair, son of Nizar, king over Israel. Anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, over Abel, and succeed you as a prophet. And then he goes in verse 18. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, whose mouths are not kissed him. Elijah said, I am all by myself. God said, I've got 7,000 people for you. Do you see that beauty? We can feel like we're always by ourselves. Our head, our emotions can say these stuff to us, say these awful things to us. But actually God says the truth. And one of the ways God helps me with my mental health is reminding me of the truth that he says over me. There's this thing called the inner critic, and it's awful. The inner critic is that voice in your head that says you're not good enough, no one likes you, why do you even bother? Scientists have found out we have between 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Don't ask me how they found out that information, I don't know. They found out 95% of those 12 to 60,000 thoughts are repeated thoughts. And so you only have 5% new thoughts each day. And out of the 95% of repeated thoughts, 80% of them are negative. 80% of your repeated thoughts are negative. And they can be trapping. It can stop us being and doing who we are called to be. And I can often feel that trapping. And ignoring it doesn't work. Ignoring the inner critic never works. Ignoring the inner critic isn't good. If I tell you, hey, don't think about chocolate, you're instantly thinking about chocolate. People often say the inner critic is like a tube. If you stand on the platform and tell the tube in London, just don't come, the tube's still going to arrive. But you can choose to get on that tube or not. But those thoughts are still going to come. So how do we fight the inner critic? How do we fight these awful thoughts in our head? The best way we can fight the awful thoughts is to replace them. Is to replace that thought process, is to replace that thing. And it's a beautiful thing in the Bible where God continually speaks truth over us. There are these promises in the Bible You're created in his image. Your body is a temple. He knows the hairs on your head. He has your name written on your hand. We are his children. Through Christ you're a new creation. And you are his masterpiece. This is what God says over you. This is the truth. No matter what your brain says. No matter what you think about yourself when you look in the mirror. This is what God says over you. But the inner critic can be an awful thing. When we let the inner critic control our lives, it stops us doing things we want to do. It stops us being who we want to be. So I want to do this activity with you guys. What helps fight the inner critic. We're going to take a few minutes doing this. And I'd love you to take it home and finish it. So you've all got paper on your tables. And inside the person, I want you to write down what the inner critic says about you. Now no one else is going to see this. This is for you. So inside your person, you write down what the inner critic says about you. And then for everything you write down, on the outside, you say the truth. So for me, one of the things, so I'm severely dyslexic. So in school, I thought I was really dumb because the educational system wasn't set up for me. So the inner critic can often say to me, Joel, you're really stupid. But actually the truth is, I'm in a job I'm doing good at. And actually I'm not dumb, I just wasn't set up in the way it works for me. And the idea is to write the inner critic on the inside, write the truth on the outside, and every time that inner critic thought comes into your head, you look at it, and you look at the truth, and you replace that thought process. And the incredible thing is when you do that often enough, your brain creates new pathways in your brain, and it starts to do it automatically. So through this process, your brain can start fighting the critic automatically. So take 5 minutes, do it by yourself. If you can put music on, that'd be great. If you can't, no worries. And just write the inner critic inside and the outside, write the truth. Make sure you do one inner critic and one truth. So you don't get to the 5 minutes, you've got all the awful things and you've got no truth. That defeats the object. But like I said earlier, 1 in 4 people in the UK have a mental health condition. So actually, what can we do about that? As a church, we need to respond because that is our calling. As a church, how do we act? The Bible has these 2 passages, what I really love. It's Jesus speaking and Paul speaking. Jesus in John 13:35 says this. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Jesus here is going, is your love to each other will make people recognise you as my disciple. That's a mandate and a calling for us, that our love, the way we love our neighbours, our friends, our communities, our enemies, is how we'll be recognised as followers of Jesus. So we as followers of Jesus cannot not love. It's part of who we are, it's how we are recognised. And then Paul in Galatians says this, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfil the law of Christ. The law of Christ is the verse in John 13:35. The law of Christ is in Galatians, the verse in John. We are called to carry each other's burdens. Hey, carry each other's burdens. By this you fulfill what Jesus told you to do in John 13. When we look at this verse in Galatians, the word in Greek is really interesting. The word for burdens in Greek is baros. And it means heaviness, weight, burden and trouble. And actually, as we look around the world today, as I look around the UK, as I look at my friends, as I look at my community, there's so much heaviness, isn't there? There's so much heaviness. The news feels heavy. You look at people and their shoulders are down, it feels heavy. Jesus says, carry each other's heaviness. Carry each other's burdens. And 2 things here are really interesting. The first thing this means is, there's a fundamental truth here, that all of us have a burden. All of us have heaviness. So often we as Christians have painted ourselves as the perfect people. Life is good, nothing's wrong, God is good, we're good, all's good. the Bible says, hey, we all have a burden. We all have a heaviness. So first off, if you feel like you've got a heaviness and you're ashamed of that, don't be ashamed. We all have a heaviness. So everyone has a heaviness. But the second thing it says is all of us can carry someone else's heaviness. Paul here doesn't say, Christians carry everyone else's burdens. He doesn't say, those who have no burdens carry everyone else's burdens. He doesn't say, counsellors and medical professionals carry everyone else's burdens, and no one. He says, each of you carry each other's burdens. Carry each other's heaviness. And as a church, as Christians, how do we do that? Because we aren't medical professionals. We aren't people who have degrees in mental health. How do we do that? One of the ways that Kintsugi, we try and help people figure out this idea of how do we carry our community's burdens is through this idea of holding space. Holding space, by definition, means giving support that is free of judgment. It means being physically, mentally and emotionally present for someone whilst they feel their feelings. A key part of holding space is withholding judgment and withhold trying to fix. It is really hard because as humans we love to judge because it makes us feel better about ourselves, if we're honest. And we love to try and fix because that's how we feel like we're helping someone. And holding space isn't saying don't try and fix people, but what it's saying is put it in its right place. When someone comes to you who's emotional about something, and they're like, this is all what's happening, what they need from you is an emotional response, not trying to fix. After the emotional response, let's make a game plan. Let's help you out. But holding space is holding a moment for someone to feel their feelings. And I imagine a lot of you do this already. Have you ever had it where someone's just spoken to you for about 20 minutes? And then they go, oh, I feel so much better, thank you. You're like, I did nothing. But no, you held space for them. You made them feel safe. You made them feel secure. We as Christians, the best way we can help carry each other's burdens, the best way we can show love to our neighbours is going in this world of chaos, in this world of loud and of noise and of pain and of heaviness. Let me hold a safe space for you to process it. Let me hold that safe space. And in a world where nowhere feels safe, and someone encounters a safe space, they want to know what's different about you. What's different about us is we know the love of the Father. And the love of the Father changed everything. And the love of the Father is safe. And it holds us. By this you will know that you're my disciple. By the way you love one another. So let's hold space for people. And with that in mind, we at Kintsugi tried to work out how we can help the church do that. Kintsugi is set up to see a world where mental and emotional health is understood and accepted, with safe and supportive communities for everyone to grow and flourish. How we do that is we partner with local churches across the UK to run wellbeing groups. Wellbeing groups for adults is 12 weeks long, and then the youth version was 6 weeks long, and then the student university version was 6 weeks long. The wellbeing groups kind of like Weight Watchers or Alcoholics Anonymous, but for your mental health. You go to the gym for your physical health. What do you do for your mental health? This thing is 12 weeks. You gather together once a week. You look through a topic, and you speak about a topic, and you work out tools and build a toolkit for each of you to look after your own mental health and the mental health of your friends. And it's done in community, and it's done with the church. So you can't run a wellbeing group unless you're a partner organisation. You can't be a partnership organisation unless you're a Christian organisation. Because we believe as a church we are called to look after our communities. So we created a tool to help churches look after the mental well-being of their communities. If you want to know more, just come and speak to me. But we're coming to land. I want to give you 5 minutes for one last activity, and then we'll be done. Life's super stressful, isn't it? Yeah. Like, let's be honest, it is so stressful, and it's like, it can often feel too much. So I wanted to leave you with something to help you when life is stressful. Imagine life is like a river, and we're all on a boat on a river. And there are things in life that lower the water levels. And lowering the water levels gets us closer to these rocks. Now these rocks look really pretty here, but rocks aren't nice. We don't like rocks. That's burnout, that's not nice stuff. Boo, no one likes rocks. There are things in life that will lower our resilience levels, will get us closer to the pretty but awful rocks. And there are things in life that will raise our water levels or makes life really easy. And the activity is this, is you draw in that river and very simply writing things down what lower your resilience levels and writing things down what increase your resilience levels. So, for me, a lack of sleep and a lack of rhythms, and blimey, I am close to the rocks. That really isn't good for my body. I really struggle with perfectionism. And perfectionism can lead me to demotivation. So my brain goes, Joel won't be perfect, so don't bother. And I'm like, oh, I won't be perfect, so I won't bother. Feeling disconnected, friends, family, people like that, always really struggles. And holding on to shame. These things, I know, cause stress in my life. And there's hundreds of others, but if I showed you my whole life and what's stressful, we'd be here till tomorrow. So I thought I'd give you 4. These things lower up my resilience levels and lead me close to the rocks. But there are things in my life that increase my resilience levels and make life just that little bit easier for me. A well-balanced life, that's quiet time, not quit time. I forgot to add an E. That's exercise and that's sleep. There's also being creative. So when I realised perfectionism led to demotivation for me, what I did was I bought watercolour paints, because they just go everywhere, so it can't be perfect. Reading and coffee shop. Reading in a coffee shop, life is good. Can I ask you, if you see me in a coffee shop reading a book, don't speak to me, because life's really good then. I do not want to speak to you. And lastly, nature. Where I live, each morning I can walk 5 minutes down the road, I'm in this little brook, and that brings joy to my life and makes life easier. For the last 5 minutes, I would love you to write down your resilience level. What make things increase your levels, and what makes things decrease your levels. And then what you do is the bottom ones, you put into your life those things. So plan them in, put it into your calendar. Coffee shop and read them, put those things into your calendar, will help you keep them going. 5 minutes, go ahead.